Welcome, everyone, to the newly named Football for All. Same podcast as Let's Talk About, but new name, better fit for what we discuss here, as we have Super Bowl 54 recaps for you today. And I'm bringing back in our great friends Tony Stenulson and Michael Grimberg to the panel discussion. Guys, welcome back. Last we talked, it was Wild Card Weekend, and man, we have had a ride through the playoffs, leading to, I would say, a much more enjoyable Super Bowl than Super Bowl 53. What do you both think?
I agree. A lot more scoring and back and forth throughout the game, offense and defense. Not so much special teams like I was trying to predict before the Super Bowl, but yeah, I thought it was a really good game. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Tony?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a lot better than last year's. I'm pretty sure I fell asleep during the game at some point last year, and this one I was more of on the edge of my seat. So always good when that can happen.
Yeah, there were multiple times last year I had both my hands under my chin, just kind of have that boring look or like slopping face, if you know what I'm saying. Slouching. That's what I'm saying. Slouching face. It was boring, at least in a sense of football and just how much of sloppiness it was. But this year was quite the dramatic affair, especially in the final 10 minutes, by the way, which that's what we're going to get into. Let's just jump into the meat of this thing. Super Bowl 54. Quite the contest, to say the least, and quite a 10-minute span in the fourth quarter. Kansas City stuck to status quo, as if we're talking playoffs, where they, at one point or another, seemed to get down and only having to find a way either via Patrick Mahomes and that ridiculously over-talented offense having to pick up the slack and deliver a crucial performance at some point during the game, this time coming in the fourth quarter just to add to the drama nonetheless. San Francisco, unfortunately, has to continue the trend of Kyle Shanahan not knowing how to keep a lead. Get that piece here in a second, but what really stuck out to you guys? There's a lot of stuff going on in this game. In particular, the second half really is what stands out to many people, but the first half kind of showed some trends as to how this game was going to progress into the third quarter and beyond. I let Michael start last time we talked. So Tony, you're going to go first here. What really stuck you? What stuck out to you, at least, for Super Bowl 54?
I think it's that consistent mentality that the Chiefs had of just that never say die attitude. Every time this postseason, they have been down by 10 points or more, and each time they came back and won the game. To me, that mentality speaks volumes, because if you get down a certain number of points and you think, oh, well, I'm never going to be able to come back, then you never will. Mm-hmm. But if you consistently grind and stick to what you know you're good at, usually things work out best for you. The 49ers, give them all the credit in the world. They have probably the best defense in the league this season, but they did not adapt to Patrick Mahomes or the game plan, really, of the Kansas City Chiefs. And then even at that, they didn't adapt their offensive game plan to exploit the Kansas City defense for what it is.
That's a very fair assumption. It seemed mostly in the after the 7-minute mark in the fourth quarter, I had the feeling that San Francisco and Kyle Shanahan and company, they just didn't adapt, like you're mentioning. They didn't really adapt correctly to the game plan. For the sake of the offensive side for San Francisco, it seemed like they were just overly aggressive. They were going away from what was working for most of the second through mid-fourth quarter, which was the play action. Kyle Shanahan executed it perfectly. When it wasn't Raheem Mostert or Tevin Coleman breaking off chunk runs of 7 to 10 yards, Jimmy Garoppolo was able to fool the Kansas City secondary and deliver easy 5 or 10 yard chunk plays or you just had Deebo Samuel going in these jet sweeps. I mean, it felt like that they just diverted away so much in the second half, and then couple that with a Patrick Mahomes comeback of the ages, and it just is a perfect storm. Michael, do you feel the same way? And I kind of want to, I really want to hear what you think, because Kyle Shanahan just cannot seem to shake the monkey off his back with this one. I mean, this is second straight time, man.
I know.
Got another lead, fourth quarter.
Right. And before the game, I was kind of conflicted at who I was kind of rooting for, but I ultimately went with the Chiefs, and only because of Mahomes and how you cannot hate Andy Reid. Like, the guy has, but anyway, just getting to it. I think that everything that Tony has touched on is completely true. And like, adding on to that a little bit, I would say that talking about the 49ers and specifically, they really just did not stick to their game plan of playing hard-nosed defense and running the ball. I always say it when it comes to any football game, really. You pass to score and you run to win, and the 49ers just did not do that. Granted, they did have more rush yards than the Chiefs. They had 141. That was mixed in with all three backs. But the time of possession speaks for itself. The 49ers were only held to 26 minutes, and the Chiefs had 33. So it just shows how Kyle Shanahan was not able to, for the second Super Bowl that he's been in, to not establish the run late in the game when he clearly needs to run the clock out, which I thought Andy Reid did beautifully.
Yes, he did.
With Damian Williams. Yes, he literally clock management to a T, textbook. And I think that's really what determined this game was the run game.
Yeah, and I have to agree. I'm amazed at how many people forget how well of a back Damian Williams is in this offense, because he's more of a pass catching back, but he really was able to, I would say, exploit a little bit of what San Francisco's weakness is. If there is any weak part in the 49ers defense, it actually has been somewhat the run this year compared to the past. Now, when I was talking the championship games a week or so ago and previewing it, my main issue was actually matchups in the passing game, because I thought that you can't tell me that you're going to cover Tyreek Hill, Watkins, Kelsey, and Damian Williams all in the same game against a secondary that, well, I mean, yes, Richard Sherman's there and Jimmy Ward are there, but I don't see how that secondary keeps up. And up until the fourth quarter, they mostly were. I was actually really impressed. Mainly that was because of pressure that the front four were getting, DeForest Buckner and Solomon Thomas and Nick Bosa. The defense did collaborate for 4 total sacks for this game. So, Patrick Mahomes was being kind of abused in the backfield for the majority of it. But what really changed, I think, is Mahomes just, at some point, I remember Joe Buck saying, this has to be the worst performance that Mahomes has had in his career so far. And all of a sudden he started running for first downs. Like, he kind of had what I would say a Paul Crew moment from like The Longest Yard, where it was like it was almost like his team gave up on him, so he had to do it himself. And then from there, it just seemed like everything started clicking again. Tyreek Hill gets open. Sammy Watkins has I believe it was a 40-yard pass to set up the changing of the lead late in that game, which would be a short toss to Damian Williams in the fourth quarter. And then, of course, when you have energy on the offensive side of the ball, your defense starts to step up because they want to get that tenacity and aggression that the offense has. So obviously they were shutting down the 49ers. Couple that with Kyle Shanahan, as you mentioned, sticking away from his game plan, and it just became a perfect storm. I mean, 21 points in the fourth quarter just instantly evaporated what was a 10-point lead. And what seemed like I thought, and many of the people I was with thought, was going to be a 49ers Super Bowl, that they were going to be the next team to have championships on that mountaintop. And, well, we're not going to, that obviously didn't happen, but it's because of just how good Mahomes is and just how much of surrounding talent that the Chiefs have built up over these last 3 years. It's staggering that they have been able to accumulate this much on the offensive side of the ball. And, well, and a lot of that talent also is re-signed to next year, funny enough. So it's even scarier when you consider 2020's aspects.
Yeah, and that 44-yard pass, I think it was, to Sammy Watkins.
There you go, 44.
Down in 14 play. Third down and 14 to go. They got 44 yards to set up pretty much what was that Damian Williams score. So these guys they don't know how to quit, and it's beautiful to see. And as a Cowboys fan, seeing Andy Reid get his first Super Bowl not with the Eagles is a great feeling. Respect the guy.
It is
no
definitely
doubt. It's
feeling,
just, it's just Kyle Shanahan needed to run the ball. And, I think that's the key in the last 2 Super Bowls that he's been in. Sorry to bring it up again, Mike. Just the fourth quarter, if you have that lead, you got to eat that clock. Because if you don't give the 49ers time, and the kids in 49ers defense was doing a great job against the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, you give them time at all, you're gonna lose. And that was proven to us this Sunday.
Yeah, it's more damning of the run game for the 49ers, considering that they were the second overall rushing offense in the NFL, only behind the Baltimore Ravens, and that the 148 yards that they mustered for their rushing game is almost unimpressive, to say the least. I mean, Raheem Mostert only had 12 carries in this game. Think about that. He could have easily gone for 20. Tevin Coleman only had 5, and he averaged roughly 5.5 yards a carry on any of the plays that he was on. They have an excellent play action game, and it amazes me that they bailed so hard on it, especially with a lead. I mean, even when it was 20-17, it seemed like the 49ers were so adamant about continuing the passing game, even with a 3-point advantage. And the passes that they were doing, they weren't play actions. They were just straight dropbacks, which is not what was their bread and butter for this game through the third and late second quarter. It was play action, and it worked. The Chiefs weren't able to adjust, but unfortunately, they decided to play right into the Chiefs' hands, and, well, this is what we got. But it made for an excellent Super Bowl. One other thing I have to mention, 49ers had the turnover advantage, and this was something I didn't think that would happen, was that you'd have Mahomes throw 2 interceptions that I thought both of them were going to be like nail in the coffin type of plays. San Francisco would go down the field, go up 27-10, and this game would be blown way open at that point, but they just couldn't execute at any portion of this game. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo threw an interception first half, which led to a Chiefs touchdown, something I did predict that was going to happen, but I didn't think it was going to be that early, and it didn't really change the game because, this game kind of had ebb and flow up until the fourth quarter where just the floodgates blew wide open. So a lot of things were going the right way. It's just amazing that, the perfect storm in a 10-minute span. And, sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. And it actually goes back to one quote I have for some superstars, like in the likes of like Deshaun Watson when they were playing Buffalo in the wild card. Super Bowl superstars cannot be kept down for an entire game. Eventually, they are going to find a sliver of what makes them great. It's just that Mahomes is just that much above the greats in the league that his worst day can also be impressive.
Absolutely.
And that's what really led him into earning an MVP trophy. And I want to bring this up because I have an argument for why he's not the MVP of Super Bowl 54. Do you guys think that it was a deserved reward for him?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Granted, he threw two interceptions. He had a decent game, but to Mahomes status that we've come to expect, this was a lackadaisical, pretty subpar game for him. And without him taking the ball on that option play where literally one play 49er defender was left to kind of try to cover two guys, whether it was him and Damian Williams. Damian Williams should have gotten the MVP. That guy, as you said, pass catching back, but also was showing him those flashes of where he could actually run the ball. 2 touchdowns, should have had a third off of that one. I think for the winning team, Damian Williams should have been the MVP. On the flip side, would have loved to see Deebo Samuel get the MVP had the 49ers won.
Yeah. I agree with all those statements, and that's actually who my choice would have been. Not Deebo Samuel. Now you got me thinking Deebo Samuel. Damian Williams. Damian Williams, I also thought should have had at least some sort of chance at this. I kind of equate it to Super Bowl 51, where James White was snubbed by many considered over Tom Brady for that performance. And Damian Williams went under the radar, it seems, for his performance in this game, but he did stretch out and score the then lead-changing touchdown late in the fourth quarter. He had over 100 yards rushing for a team that's not known to be a rushing team, and was I would say, arguably a consistent X factor throughout the entire duration of this game, not just for one quarter. Yeah. I think most valuable player, a lot of times it's based on the moment. Something that I discussed with on Twitter with some people is, quarterbacks can be defined by the moment, the throw, the touchdown that defines their career forever. I mean, for crying out loud, Ben Roethlisberger, I can argue, is partially defined by one throw to San Antonio Holmes against the Arizona Cardinals, if I was being honest. But quarterbacks kind of have that as part of their legacy, and running backs, much like contract situations have been in recent years, they seem to be forgotten. And this is one that shouldn't be. And I agree with Tony here. That's the guy I think deserved it. All 4 quarters was a consistent threat. That's my opinion. Michael?
Absolutely. I would agree with Damian Williams as being the MVP. But just to be kind of different, because that's me.
That's
fine. Right. I do think Patrick Mahomes did deserve this MVP to an extent. I think what he has done throughout the entire postseason, and actually throughout the entire season. I know it's not a season award, but without him, actually, let's just go back a little bit.
Sure.
Without his trainer not popping his knee back into place, who knows if they would even be there.
It's the biggest moment in their season.
Honestly,
absolutely, it is the one defining moment.
Right. So then they get there, and he has this performance. Yeah, 26 completions of 42. For 286. I mean, yeah, that's for a Super Bowl. That's not terrible. But then you throw the interceptions in there, and the 2 touchdowns and the rushing touchdown. I don't know. I just can't think of a better deserving guy to get the MVP. It's so hard to hate the guy. He says all the right things. He makes the incredible throws, like you said, like that unreal one to Tyreek Hill on 3rd and 15. Like that was like the turning point of the game. That
it was.
Play, I thought it was the play of the game. Mm-hmm. Honestly, it was. And how that ball did not get picked off is beyond me. But, yeah, that was the play of the game, and it's a quarterback award. If it comes down to it, same with the MVP of the regular season. It's a quarterback-driven award, and it sells the money, It sells the merchandise because it's just a quarterback award, and kids want to see the quarterback because that's who they're watching ultimately throughout the entire game, and that's what builds their legacy. But I definitely agree that it should have been Damian Williams. He shined on the grandest stage of them all, and I don't think he really cares if he got MVP or not because he's a champion at the end of the day. So, but yeah, that's what I think about that too.
Yeah, everybody's getting a ring with a bunch of diamonds on it. So
That's
you're absolutely
right.
right. You're absolutely right. Yeah, no doubt about it. And
Right.
you know, some really good points because you know, quarterbacks are the hero for you know younger generations. They're the hero of the sport. You know, it is the most important position on a football team, if we're being honest. So yes, generally they are going to get the best votes. And I got to thank you for playing devil's advocate. You know, because that's
Absolutely.
you know it's a hard thing to do. You know,
Right.
I mean, we, you know, because there are a lot of people online that did agree that Williams deserves a chance, but you know, Mahomes is Mahomes, man. I mean, this is the guy that this is the one guy that we're okay with putting ketchup on a steak or like, we're okay with.
Okay with it.
Yeah, well, most people are okay with it, and I think now, but most people like myself are okay with seeing him do that, or we're okay with seeing him talk to Troy Polamalu on like Head and Shoulders commercials, or
Yep.
we're okay with seeing him have a Kermit the Frog voice, and you know he's the face of the league right now. But and of course this the MVP of Super Bowl MVPs have actually, of course, defined quarterbacks. I mean, with the retirement of Eli Manning, those two MVPs of his for the two Super Bowls are part of the justification for him to go to the Hall of Fame right now for most portions. And that is a really big debate on itself.
I still have contentions on that too.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, but you have to consider those because those awards matter because they won both of them. And he was indeed, you know, he was the best player in those games. So, I mean, it's hard to say there's no merit to that. So I think that's also why we argue about it so much is because, you know, sometimes we see performances that go kind of shadowed or forgotten about, you know, and that's why we have these discussions like this. So like next year, you know, we got to have another MVP crowned. It is, of course, as of this recording, 3 days after the Super Bowl has ended. The XFL's around the corner, so yay me. And hopefully you guys, if you want.
I think I'm gonna start watching this stuff too. I think I miss football already, so I might actually start tuning into this stuff.
You do have football withdrawal. You're one of the statistics. All right.
I am.
Whatever gets me to baseball season quickest, absolutely.
Yeah,
that too.
I knew you might have different. You like a day after the Super Bowl, you were already saying it's time for baseball. So I'm not surprised by you. Then that's okay. You know, that's fine. I mean, for me, it's a little different. The Cubs are kind of a mess right now, so I'm not really rushing to see how that train wreck goes for 2020. But for at least next year, as I was saying, we're gonna have to crown another MVP, which means we have two other teams that have a plethora of MVP options. Do you guys have a far too early Super Bowl duo of teams for Super Bowl 55? I have some. I mean, a lot of this, of course, is based on free agency and trades and draft, but just from what you're looking at situationally wise, do you guys have two that you are confident enough to say you could see next year?
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. At first I did not. I put a big old question mark on it, and I thought about it, and I was like, with everything, the free agency and stuff like that, and Super Bowl hangover with the 49ers, I don't see the 49ers coming back. They have a lot of money that they're going to have to be tied up with George Kittle and various other members of their defense. So they're going to have to make some tough decisions. But other than that, I don't see why the Chiefs can't be back, or the Ravens trying to fight it to get to the AFC Championship game and make a run. Why can't it be Lamar Jackson next year changing the game? And not that he already hasn't changed the game, but I wrote down that I'd like to see the Chiefs and the Seahawks next year. That would be nice follow up to this past Super Bowl.
Oh yes,
I think Seahawks, they were right in it too, and they're just in a really tough division with the 49ers, and the Cardinals are upcoming, and the Rams are right there as well, if they can stay healthy. So I think if they stay healthy, the Seahawks meaning, they stay healthy and maybe boost up the offensive line. I don't know. They have the receivers to do it. They have some defensive pieces. They could. I know they got some cap space where they can make a splash maybe in free agency. We'll see. But I would never count out Russell Wilson ever. So
No.
especially with the experience he already has. So I'd like to see that Super Bowl. Obviously, I'd like to see my team in it, but that's another story for another time. But yeah, thinking realistically right now, I think Chiefs Seahawks. I don't see why it wouldn't be the matchup in. I think it's in Raymond James Stadium this year.
Yes, Tampa Bay. Yep, they are going to Tampa Bay next year.
Yeah,
we're still on CBS, so we'll get Romo and Nance calling back next year too.
Oh man, Romo's gonna have a time.
Yeah. we'll get Romo, and that'll be his. I believe that's his first Super Bowl he's calling. I don't hold me on that, and I'll have to fact check.
I think
that
it might
later.
be his second.
Okay, I'll have to fact check that, unless you guys pick it up while we're talking. My pick was going to be. It still is Seattle and Kansas City. I thought this over hard, but the twist of it really hinges on Davian Clowney. Can they get Clowney back and sign him? Because he was traded for his final year, and they have the cap space to do it.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm believing right, they have $59 million in cap right now, so they could, in theory, sign him. And it didn't sound like Clowney was opposed to it in the offseason. He didn't really say, or during the season, he didn't say much that was negative, it seemed, towards Seattle. But the thing is, can they get that done, and can they stay healthy? Because Clowney was not healthy against Green Bay. He was barely aching that cust. I mean, the Seattle Seahawks didn't even have really a running game. They tried relying on an aging Marshawn Lynch to somehow anchor their run offense. But I mean, Russell Wilson's so capable as a passer that's why they were that close to winning in Green Bay. The team is right on the edge. This is a team that won 12 games last year, was within an inch of winning the West against San Francisco on week 17. I mean, the sky's the limit for that roster. But I think they got to get Clowney back. The defense has to have some improvements, either most likely through the draft, because the Seattle Seahawks love doing draft talent over free agent signings mostly, or they just need to maybe invest a little bit more in that $59 million. I mean, if Clowney doesn't get re-signed, then they'll have to, I think, use a little bit of it to stop the pass rush, especially since they traded Frank Clark to Kansas City to get draft picks. So, it's bound that they would have to do something to boost the defense this year. I've come to the point anymore that I just assume Seattle's offensive line is always going to be this like loosely held together unit that makes Russell Wilson do magical things. Yep. It's just like it would seem almost unnormal for him to not have to scramble pocket twice to then throw 50 yards downfield for a touchdown. So, I just think that's his normal routine. If they don't sign Clowney, I'm going to have to go most likely with the 49ers again. Either that or if I don't want to repeat Super Bowl, who would I want? 49ers and Ravens. And the Ravens have their own free agent problems, but I think those are more manageable. And they've already stressed that they need to boost their receiving core anyway, because part of the problem with their loss against Tennessee is that they could not catch the ball, which led to a deficit too early on for them to come out of. So yeah, got a few options. Tony, what are you thinking? If you have anything, I mean, you don't even have to have one. I know it's really early.
So just to do the fact checking as we're going, Romo did call last year's Super Bowl in Atlanta with Jim Nance. Yep. Looking back at the AFC, definitely know that Kansas City and the Ravens are going to be back up in the top two, depending on free agency, because there's so many quarterbacks that are available with Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, Ryan Tannehill. So far on the free agent market, it's really kind of tough to have a solid one because look what the Titans did this year. Look at how far they got to, pretty much almost taking down the the Chiefs in the AFC Championship. Yeah. That alone was amazing. NFC side, definitely see Seattle making a run. I don't think the 49ers can make it back. I think everything just kind of fell too perfectly in place for this year to where they'll be back in the playoffs, but they won't be back in the Super Bowl. And if I'm being a bit of a homer and, a bit of that typical Dallas fan, probably overconfident, I got to give love to the Cowboys, man.
Tony.
You're the number one offense. Like
Tony.
Have we not learned?
I'm not even that confident about the Bears, Tony.
I would love to see that. Realistically speaking, it'll probably be the Seahawks. Looking at the NFC side, depending on where Drew Brees signs, if he stays in New Orleans, they've got a good chance. I feel like they're hungry. Minnesota's a good option too to come into the fold for the NFC side. Kirk Cousins, proved to me that he can overcome that hump of not being able to win in the playoffs. There's a lot of options out there, so I don't want to pick a top two either way. My hope is, relies with my fandom. Probably a little too overconfident there. Definitely didn't learn my lesson from this season. Calling 12-4.
You ride or die with that. That's okay. You go ahead.
Yeah,
I actually, you know what? I give you some respect for that confidence. Props to you, man. Yeah, good job. You know what? Me and Michael here. We're very back, kind of wait and see here. Good for you to think that you can go straight to the Super Bowl. Bravo, man. Congrats. Hats off to you.
If the right pieces fall,
it's always the right pieces, Tony. It's always about the right pieces.
I know, but there's a lot of questions of free agency. So, my heart says what it wants, and my head goes, "All right, quit listening to the heart. It's kind of an idiot." So,
hey, now we have the tape because if it happens, you heard it here first.
Yeah, you're damn right. I got all this archive, man. I got folders for this stuff.
You got a folder just for me spouting off about the Cowboys.
It says Tony being cocky on it. It's right on my laptop.
Perfect.
We'll play it at the end. We'll play it at the end of the year when the Cowboys finish 8-8 again or something. And that's on tape too. So if I say that, I'll pull that out. I am not against downing myself for putting a foot in my mouth.
Me neither.
No, yeah, fair enough. I mean, we both did. First podcast we did, you and me, this year for the season. Both of us were like, oh yeah, we're totally gonna be finished like 11-5, 12-4. We're gonna be in the AFC Championship game, man. It's gonna be great. There's nothing to worry about. Cowboys are gonna come in and beat down Chicago in Soldier Field.
And then last podcast, I was, gonna guess the Cowboys are gonna go 8-8 next year, and here I am now saying just a few weeks later that we're gonna go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, amazing what a few weeks does for you, man. You must know something that we don't. You're pretty good. I'm looking forward to you like I said, cashing in. It's gonna be nice.
We'll see. Either way, it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'm in a good mood. You know what puts me in a good mood? Super Bowl commercials, man. Those put me usually in a good mood. This year's, funny enough, seemed like they fell along the line of Super Bowl 54 just being better than 53. They were good this year, man. I don't know about you guys, but I liked a lot of these this year. I thought that a lot of them kind of nailed it right on the head. I asked both of you, pick one if you want, or if you had another one that was a close second, or if say we both pick the same thing, we'll do that. So here it goes. I'm going to start out. My favorite, Groundhog Day, Bill Murray with the Jeep Gladiator.
Mm-hmm.
So good. I mean, if no one's watched Groundhog Day, it's arguably the most underrated Bill Murray film of them all. In my opinion, like maybe right next to Stripes. but the way that they reenacted him stealing the groundhog and just doing it over and over again and getting the original actors, Phil. He did the exact same walk too. Yeah, they acted out to a T. It was fantastic, and it gets just a little extra of my favor just for how much detail they put into trying to get that movie as exactly made in that scenes as possible. So that's a pick. And it's a feel good one too, and it's funny how Groundhog's Day was on the Super Bowl this year. So just, it fell perfectly.
Yeah, that was perfect. I didn't even think of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're supposed to have 6 more weeks of winter, funny enough. So
I thought we were supposed to have an early spring.
Wait, was it? I always forget. Is if he doesn't see a shadow that you do the 6 weeks, or is it? Because he didn't see a shadow this year. So does that mean it's an early spring?
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. No, yeah, that's right. Because I mentioned to a coworker of mine, I said, yeah, in Indianapolis, we've been just having rain in the winter. So it's already been spring, man. Like he just is saying it how it is, I mean, I think we're like the Seattle of the Midwest right now. We're just a bunch of rain. So not going to lie. What do you guys like? There's a lot of them. I mean, there's like 2 other ones that stick out, but like the Bill Murray one I just took the home run one, I think, but I'll say yes to whatever you guys pick, I imagine.
You go ahead, Tom.
Yeah. So my favorite was probably the Tide ads that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, it's right.
I just love Charlie Day because big fan of Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And then just the way they ended it was so perfect too, to where, he's old and he's like, yeah, finally got the stain out. And she just comes up and she goes, that's great. And then he gets another stain on his cardigan. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, man. And I think that was actually the best, last year's Tide version with David Harbour. That was the best. Those were the best commercials from last year. So they just they did a great job of getting Charlie. And I think anytime I see Charlie Day on the screen, that's all his character is just from It's Always Sunny. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
Anytime he acts, it's just Charlie from It's Always Sunny. I don't unsee it. Yeah, that was a good one though. And I always like those long form ones like that. What'd you like, Michael?
I actually have 2, and I'll start off with one because it's like a Debbie Downer one. So so I don't know if you guys remember it.
I know which one you're talking about.
I think I know what this one is.
It's the Planters one.
Oh,
the one with because they're at so it's with the baby peanut.
That's a Debbie Downer.
The baby peanut one, because it started off sad.
Yeah,
because they were talking about how they were the death of Mr. Peanut,
Oh, okay.
And they're at the funeral, and then you saw the Kool-Aid Man crying and Mr. Clean Man crying, like that's their buddy, But then Kool-Aid Man cries, and then he has the tear on his grave site, and baby Peanut comes out, and it's like reborn, and he's like, "Nah, I'm alive, guys. Like here I am." like he never died. They shouldn't have started out killing him in the first place, So that's. Yeah. So now I like that one. That was kind of cool. But anyway, we'll move to the next one. The second one I liked was the Amazon one, before Alexa.
Oh yeah.
Yes, with Ellen. Yes.
Yeah, that was so
Ellen.
good.
Yes, I liked that one. That was I think that was the first one that I saw because I was like, oh, there's Ellen, because obviously you can recognize her voice. And she's talking to her wife, and she's saying, "Oh, I wonder what they were saying before Alexa." And then they just go back in time with ages and ages, with people changing the weather, change the temperature 2 degrees, and she throws a fire burning stick out the window. How perfect is that? I want to know who thinks of these commercials, because they should be getting paid through the roof. And claps all around, because when do they start making these commercials? Because the ideas, brainstorming, because this is top notch stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and what's hard to say? At least the Groundhog one, they can just look at a calendar. So that one they probably could plan out.
That's true.
I mean, I don't know how far in advance they usually make these. That's hard for me to think on.
Right.
That'll take some research, but for another day.
Right.
But that it's always a good question because it's amazing how good marketing can be. I mean, that one's a really good one.
I know. I liked it.
My favorite part of that one actually is closer to the end where the princess is sending out like a messenger pigeon and it gets intercepted by a hawk.
Oh yeah.
Let's just say the hawk has a nice meal. So that's about it. But that really good
the
one.
Exact end of that where it was they got into the car and told her to play her favorite song, and it was the was it Yeah played on a sound jar.
Yes, exactly. They took their older version, quote unquote. That was a good one. I think it almost sounded like the I don't know if you saw these guys the video. It sounded like the one mom that did like that version of Yeah, but it was she used the fridge door to make it. I don't know if you've seen the video of that.
Yep.
It sounded just
exactly
like
what
it,
you're talking about.
unless they just stole the audio. So impossible.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's a really good one though. And yeah, there's so many good ones. Tony, you haven't said, but I imagine you got another one for us. I mean, it's great to recollect on some of these.
Yeah, actually, when Mike said something about a Debbie Downer one, I actually thought of the Google one where the older gentleman has Alzheimer's.
That's a Debbie Downer. Like
that's true.
It was a downer, but it was also like beautiful at the same time. Like it kind of made you take that stock of technology can help you remember people who have left, or just remembering to bring back those memories of those good times to the people that you love. So, I mean, it was definitely a Debbie Downer, but it was definitely still also a really good commercial.
Absolutely, man. Good. A lot of feels there.
Definitely.
But then that's great. And it's another one that's good marketing just because, not only does it show a lot of the functions of Google, but I mean, that one also shows, just how much stuff we pick up over our lifetime. So that was really touching. And every year the Super Bowl always at least has like one or two of those touching ones. I mean, if we're talking the second one, I would put up Scout from WeatherTech. That one about him surviving cancer.
Yeah, I saw
was another one.
Yeah. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was a touching one. I actually read up on the story about that, and I was gonna say the owner, when the owner did that was the only center doing that research, so that he promised he'd buy that $6 million ad to promote the University of Wisconsin. So, pretty impressive one. Pretty good and very heartfelt as well. So a few ones I want to mention that we didn't list as favorites. Mountain Dew Zero Sugar with The Shining.
Oh my gosh, that was
Bryan Cranston. Fantastic how he does it. It has all of the taste with zero of the sugar. It's beautiful.
She just goes, I am thirsty.
Great payoff. It's a great payoff. My other one's going to be that I should mention here for the end. Dorito, the Cheetos popcorn one. Can't touch this with MC Hammer.
Yes.
With all the Cheeto dust. That was what I'd have to say. For that, I got to cut this off. I feel like I'm doing this really quick, but I got to go to work. We're doing this pretty late for a usual podcast, but Zach's got late night overnight work to do. But I still appreciate you guys coming on. Thank you, as always, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you having us back on here.
Yeah. If you guys have not listened to any of our other episodes, check them out. I know like I said, the playoffs are over, but I mean, we do get on each other. It's part of what we do here. Also, if you haven't heard from us, we are going to do some point in the off season, probably talk draft or combine based podcast. Michael's been pumped for this since we
for it, man. I'm already looking at mock drafts and everything. I'm crazy with it.
Oh yeah, he's on top. I mean, Tony, we'll obviously have on. I mean, even with baseball coming up, you keep up. You keep up with stuff. You got the Cowboys to worry. getting the
Yeah, exactly. And I also have the Falcons to worry about to steal all the draft picks we're looking at. The pick before us too.
That's right.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. See, you got some stuff to worry about. You got to check up on Michael, make sure he.
That's right.
he knows the need to have a specific
line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll reconvene about something based on the draft. That's gonna be a little longer unless I don't know, maybe we'll have something on XFL. I know I'll be doing XFL content, but if these guys are watching like we were talking before we started, perhaps maybe I'll have you two on, see what you guys think of the league midway through the season or something. But until next time, thank you all. Thanks again to Tony and Michael for coming on, and thank you all for listening in. Be sure to catch us on our social platforms. You can find Tony and Michael on Facebook. Tony is the one that's on Twitter, at least. And Michael is on Instagram as well as with his Facebook. As for me, I am on all platforms. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Look up ZK Podcast. Facebook, it's a different naming, but that's because Facebook is annoying and they decide to not let me change my name for rebrands. It's kind of dumb, but whatever. Figure it out. Other than that, podcast will be up on YouTube and everywhere else in between. Thanks again for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next time.